What is up, fellow gamers? Welcome to the CRUBCAST, your weekly dose of controlled chaos. Ladies, gentlemen, everyone in between and outside, I'm here with my cohort, JTart9.
I'm very excited to be here.
I'm here with the Golden Bolt, Kevin.
I'm not as excited as Justin to be here, but
I'm very excited.
And Justin's never been excited in his life because Brody is also here.
I'm somewhere in the middle in my level of excitement.
Nicco, how excited are you? Are you unexcited to be on this podcast?
I am the Goldilocks of excitement, I would say. I think I'm just at the right level of enthusiasm to hit the cruise control and we'll get there and we'll keep the ball up in the air, baby. Because today,
so Justin, what are we talking about today?
Bro, you said Brody and my excitement went from a 10 to a 2. I believe what we're talking about today is we're talking about how like there are really weird like subgenres and they're like not really good to name. Like
a lot of them have some confusing names, right? Especially when you get down like the way that some music genres do, right? We got onto this topic. It sort of transformed from the idea of talking about micro genres as a whole, something that is very prevalent in music and is now sort of taking roots in games as games develop and genres evolve. And then Kevin brought up the idea of just ragging on the ones that make no sense, which is fair because a lot of them are crazy.
I hate the name Metroidvania. I think that's
that's what started this.
That's a dog shit name. That name is actual dog shit.
It is. It is, and yet if you know.
No, it's not.
If you understand context, it makes sense. But I'm not going to defend that it's not a good name.
What do you think a Metroidvania is, Nicco? And then we'll go to you, Justin, because you might have more of an idea.
Okay. Well, I know what a Metroidvania is.
Yeah.
Which also, I'll say it. I'm against any genre name that's specific to a game, including Soulsborne. I don't think it's a good name. It's not descriptive. It doesn't tell you what's going on. Metroid,
they operate on kind of an if you know basis.
Right. Yeah. And Metroidvania, as we know, to me, the prime feature there is backtracking. I know there are other facets to it, but I'll say backtracking. And I can only surmise that a Metroidvania would be a Metroidvania, but they don't tell you where to go, and you have to solve it like a puzzle.
So that's an interesting take. You're close in some facet. Mm-hmm. The thing about a Metroidvania, though, is that Metroidvanias generally also don't tell you where to go.
Yeah, I surmised that after it left my mouth. I was like,
they can. There are some like Metroid Dread is very linear. Metroid Fusion is very linear. There are linear Metroidvanias, and it's then in the perception, the verisimilitude of the exploration, much like how, according to Nintendo's own Miyamoto, a good puzzle makes you feel smart, not necessarily have to be smart.
Yeah,
and in terms of game design, that's a very, very good philosophy. Justin, what do you think a Metroidvania is?
It's got to be do something, guys. Like it has to do something with puzzles. I'd imagine
it has to do something. It has to be.
You guys are on the right track with regards to puzzles, but there's there's something that differentiates them from like let's say a Portal or a. No. So it's, in a game like Portal or a game like Talos Principle, you're kind of just doing puzzles like room by room, level by level, in a way that you might play a Mario game level by level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A Metroidvania sort of takes the idea of puzzles and puts them on almost both a micro and macro scale in a Metroidvania backtracky focused kind of world. In large part, the main difference between a Vania and a Brania is typically you're going to have a lot of locks and keys that facilitate the backtracking, usually in the form of power-ups, tools, new moves. Like you get a double jump, you get a glide, you get a grappling hook, and those open up new areas that you've seen them in the past. You go, oh, I've seen that icon in the past. I know I can go back there now, and there's more to explore. A Brania takes that idea and says, technically speaking, if you knew what was if you knew all of the mechanics of the game already, you could access all of those areas, because all of those locks and keys are based on your understanding of the world and the mechanics. So, as an example, like in Outer Wilds, you have this little drone thing that you can shoot, and it can take a picture of something. And you learn later that there are these like bramble patches that kind of are non-Euclidean space, and they open up into their own worlds. And so you kind of put together that I can shoot my thing through that in order to get a picture, so I can get information to then go navigate the actual space that I can teleport to from a different location. And there's all kinds of puzzles like that throughout the game.
Maybe the worst example you could have given.
I didn't want to pick one of the ones that's like a really big spoiler, because that is the magic of that game.
So
I'm not gonna lie, you lost me there.
Let's break that down a little bit. The idea
I'm trying to like visualize it. Sorry.
The idea of a Metroidvania
I think
is a Metroidvania where the unlockables are knowledge. Except there is not a Metroidvania genre definition besides that. Yeah. So games that are Metroidvanias, shortly, you could call them Brainias if you wanted to.
I don't want to.
I don't want to either. Brody, name a handful of games that fit into the Brainia genre. Just name the games.
I think this is what Tunic is it not?
Yes, so Outer Wilds and Tunic are propped up as sort of the top of the genre.
So if you like Outer Wilds, you should play this furry fox Zelda game.
Yeah. If you like the first-person walking simulator exploring game Outer Wilds, go play the Zelda / Souls-y Tunic, because they actually give you a similar experience if you go in wanting that kind of puzzly thing. Other games in the list would be The Witness, Animal Well, Baba Is You to an extent.
No, Baba Is You is just a puzzle game.
No, Breath of the Wild would not count. Breath of the Wild even eschews the sort of shared DNA that Zelda games typically have with the Metroidvania genre, and that it gives you all of the locks and keys right at the beginning of the game and says go nuts, right?
Breath of the Wild is an immersive sim.
No,
it is. Actually,
we're going to talk about
an immersive sim.
Speaking of shitty genre names, we'll talk about that in a sec. But yeah, to go through some of those Metroidvanias, there's a game where you draw lines. There's Space Simulator. There's Fuzzy Fox Zelda game. There's just a Metroidvania. It's just a Metroidvania in Animal Well. You can call it a Metroidvania. You have
actually,
power-ups.
Animal Well's kind of an immersive sim in its own right.
Or shut the hell up.
No.
So anyway, you can see why I don't like this genre name, because all it is if you are looking for a very specific brain feeling, I'll give them that. If you're looking for a very specific way to get high, you need these handful of games to and nothing else. These games have nothing else in common except for the fact that they tickle your brain a certain way.
Ever since I played Outer Wilds, like I have been chasing that dragon over and over and over again, because it is just so satisfying when you hit one of those eureka moments and essentially unlock a Metroidvania power-up, but because you realize the solution to a puzzle. So that was always there.
So that's what Brainias are, and there's a lot of debate even within the 5 people that care about that genre name as to what games even count as Brainias.
I say it's just a feeling, isn't it?
It's just a vibe. It's just a vibe.
Which
it was like
I'm
the
not
5
opposed.
I said in Fez, I think, are the commonly cited ones.
I'm not opposed to the idea of just having a vibe be, like a micro genre, right? Like I'm totally fine with the idea of just saying like, okay, I like games that share this specific ideological, development ideology, right? But this one is particularly
this one is one of the tamer ones. I'm not gonna lie.
It gets worse from here.
It doesn't hit.
It's one of those things where there's nothing wrong with saying, if you like this game, this is a game that did something similar for me.
Yeah,
I think there's a point.
I feel like making a genre for it.
There's a point at which an ideological genre that contains games that are nothing alike outside of the fact that they make your brain tickle a certain way is an absolute mess of a genre. Because if you look at Tunic, it is a Zelda game. It is a Zelda game with Souls-styled combat. Only when you get to the very end of it does it open up, okay, now we're going to tickle your brain with essentially ARG puzzles.
Oh, no. I mean, there is an ARG at the end of it all, but it does from the very beginning, right? Like, you can't even level up in that game until you get it. You'll find a piece of the manual where if you read it, you can kind of like put together like, oh, I can tell that the game, if I go to the bonfires essentially, and I press L1 when I'm there and I have these specific items, now I can start to upgrade my levels, which is kind of the key to facing the first major boss. And then the whole loop in that game revolves around you finding pieces of the manual and then putting together the mechanics from the manual. And so there's teleporters in the game, but you don't know that initially, but you do kind of see this thing at the beginning of the game and go, this looks significant for some reason, but I don't know what to do with it. And then later you learn, like, you hold a specific button when you're on top of it, and it will take you to a fully like fast travel teleporter room. Which then you get that at the point in the game, like you kind of make that realization at the exact point where you're kind of going, man, I wish there was fast travel in this game.
Yeah, what I said was correct. Yeah, Justin.
Question. So theoretically in Tunic, if you knew the buttons for this, you could do this from the beginning of the game?
Yes. 100%.
Interesting. That's
you
a very
still need
cool
the
way
items
of designing
to level up a little, but yeah, Tunic's an interesting one from a development perspective, and we're not going to get into it because this is not a podcast about Tunic, but it's interesting because it's very indie game in its the core design, because you can go and see you can go and find articles of the lead designer saying, yeah, you know, I left my job and went to make this game, and here are all the games I liked when I started development. And then I spent 10 years delaying the game over and over again until it came out.
And you know what? It worked.
It did, but then also it was marketed as a Zelda game, and then it's not really one.
And so that's the thing that we've talked about before. And what I wanted to say to Justin is, you had said, like, you know, what is the point of even labeling this genre? And I think that there's a key here where I actually wrote Tunic off for years and years since it came out, because I thought it was, I had the opposite experience of Kevin, where I thought it was just a Zelda game. Like, we both got the same impression of, oh, it's a Zelda game. Kevin going, oh, that's cool. That's a cool little indie Zelda game. Like, I want to play that. And me going, you know, I don't know that it's my thing, or, you know, it's not super on my radar. And then more recently, I've been hearing people say, like, oh, it's one of the better Metroidvanias, like from people that have played Outer Wilds and have played Animal Well, and go, yes, I like that. I understand fundamentally what that does for me. This is one of the ones that does a lot. And so only at that point where people started pitching it to me in that way did I get interested, and I was able to go in expecting that kind of experience, versus Kevin, who went in expecting like a pure Zelda and got something that is explicitly kind of not that. I mean, but it isn't.
It was marketed as a Zelda game, so when you're like, oh, I'll play it because it's on Game Pass, and then you do, and then you're like, oh, it's not really, like, I like a lot of the ideas the game has, but you know, that's the problem with a Metroidvania, is it's almost destined to not find its audience for several years until it's $1.
Yeah, it took me a few years to get into Outer Wilds, even like a particularly egregious false start from me. But once I was able to get into it, I was able to see what it was doing and go, like, okay, I want more of this. So having that term is actually very useful for me, even because, you know, I like Zelda games. I like you know, side-scrolling Metroidvania games in the way that Animal Well is sort of on the surface. So having a term to basically be like, yeah, here's this micro genre term that sort of is a little add-on, a little augmenter to these other ideas that you already like. Yes, these games are going to be vastly different from one another in a lot of respects, but they're going to give you that key part that you're looking for.
Yeah.
That it makes all the difference to me, and being able to find these games in that way is very useful.
It's the math rock of game genres.
It is, absolutely. And it's funny you say that, because in the last couple of years, I've really gotten into math rock.
See, but here's the thing, right? Like I am very pro micro genre, and I'm very pro this feeling being a genre. I'm very against the name. Like,
it's a bad name.
I don't.
Well, the thing is you're against the etymology of the name in the first place, right? The Metroidvania to begin with is flawed. People are just taking that sort of established word and then remixing and adding on the Brainia part. So I agree that Metroid Brainia is not a great name, but it is not a great name because its root word is already not a great name.
Right. I just am against the idea, and I'd like to move on from Metroid Brainia, please. I dislike the idea of naming a genre after the thing that started the genre. So, like,
do you hate the term death metal?
What? Justin, but death metal by death metal wasn't the song that started the genre death metal.
No, but it's called death metal because it was named after the band Death, right?
I actually don't know. Metal came from like journalism, from what I understand. Like it was like metal. An insult to the music that they then flipped, as is with a lot of things. But I don't know where death metal
from my understanding, was it. There's a band named Death.
There is. Well, there are two bands named Death actually. From what I understand, there are two bands named Death. So I think. I don't know. I have to do some more research on this one and get back to you. I really
because I'm interested on your thoughts of that. Because Nicco and I have had like the genre talk personally before.
Yeah,
because I'm very much so against like micro genres. I'm like, it's just that.
Right. So like, I'm pro it because I'm often seeking such a specific thing that it really helps me categorize personally.
I think my issue is this is almost a gatekeepy opinion, so I don't want it to come off that way. But I think my issue is the over categorization, because once a genre, like I think once a genre reaches a certain threshold of examples, that is when I think it qualifies as a genre. There are examples that we're going to make, that I'm going to make right now, of genres that were spawned by one individual or one team wanting to be different and describing their game in a different way to stand out, which is fine as marketing. But when you actually try to make a genre called wall former.
Okay, I see what you're getting at.
A wall former is just a platformer where there's wall running, which is called a platformer.
That's a that's a platformer.
Most you say there's parkour, right?
No, you're right. There does come a point where you are splitting hairs. There does come a point where you're splitting hairs.
And I think it's specifically when you are doing it yourself, you are making fetch happen.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'll give another one, which actually is partly developed by the same people. I saw this one yesterday while we were joking about this topic. I saw a game that's being defined as a neighborvania. I don't know what that means.
A neighborvania? I have a solid guess. I have a solid guess.
It's very Harvest Moon inspired, so I'm guessing you're supposed to use the knowledge from one neighbor to learn about the next one and befriend them to save the town or whatever.
Farming life sim.
I was thinking like Hello Neighbor.
Town sim? No, I'm thinking like a town sim.
It's almost a town sim, but you need to use the knowledge from talking to people to then figure out what to do with the next person. It's gossip. It's a gossipvania.
It's almost just what the term cozy game has started to mean at this point.
There's a cozy horror game that got announced at the State of Play.
I understand cozy horror. You guys are against it. I understand it. I get cozy horror.
Doesn't exist.
Diametrically opposed concepts. That is like saying there's hot Coldman.
No, I understand in the context of like a Tim Burton, right?
No, I mean, look, Brody, that's a really good example.
You can feel that the aesthetics of a game are cozy, but that is opposed to the concept of a horror game scaring you. You can specifically want a game that is visually cozy and want horror. I think that then putting those two together in a genre name defeats the purpose of both to the main breadth of audience.
All it shows is that horror fans are desensitized. Look, that's really all it shows, to be honest with you,
which is an interesting thought, at least. Yeah. I don't have an issue with the idea of those games existing. I think the genre is just stupid as a name, or as a genre category.
It brings into mind this idea that video games have an added dimension to them where you can talk about genre in terms of gameplay that a movie or a book or even music doesn't have, where you're kind of, it's got one, like there could be a
see what
horror
you're saying.
movie,
Yeah, two
or
like
an action
I understand
movie
what
or a
you're talking
comedy
about,
movie.
yeah, you're saying
and a
there's
game
two
can be a
facets.
comedy game, like a thematic genre, right? Like a
Right.
game can be horror, comedy, action, whatever it is,
Yeah.
but it's also going to have that gameplay modifier. So
Yeah, like Balatro is a poker card game and Inscription is a horror card game, you know?
Well, and
Sure.
I mean, you can do that within not regular, with legacy media. You can call Severance a comedy. It's pretty funny. It's got undertones of super creepy stuff in there, like where it's very unsettling by its
you
design.
probably say dark comedy, right?
You could call it a dark comedy, thriller, mystery box if you want to. You shouldn't then make a new genre for just that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's the thing, right? So like even like Soulsborne, right? Like let's take even just an example of something that like now there happen to be enough examples, I think, for it to qualify as a small genre. But I hesitate to say that it's well defined, and I hesitate to say it is a good name because I don't think it's descriptive enough. I think it is heavily dependent on knowing something about the game Dark Souls or the game Bloodborne, right?
Which I don't think that's a bad thing for derivative media. Like there's a reason that like roguelike became a genre because there was one game called Rogue and it had procedural generation and restart permadeath when you die sort of situation. With the I don't think Rogue had the ability to get better as you went on with like permanent upgrades. That's what a roguelite is rather than a roguelike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, that's really starts to split hairs, but those became so ingrained and have been so popular in recent years, more so than a genre like a Metroidvania, that it does make sense to stick with a thing called a roguelike. Like, I understand why that one stuck.
Yeah.
With
It's gotten even dumber.
It just is again not descriptive enough for me.
With Soulsborne, it's almost in the same vein as the Metroidvania feeling that people want, where they want this specific weighty combat with this specific Metroidvania-styled level design, where you are designing your stages and your areas in such a way that there are progress gates and shortcuts and non-platforming. Like platforming that is like a very
classic Soulsborne fall platforming, baby.
Fall platforming is what you could probably call it. I tend to call it like non-traditional level design because it's very antithetical to the idea of level design because you are creating a world instead of creating a level. And so the Soulsborne or Souls-like genre. The good thing about those is that those were a fan term in the way that a Metroidvania is, so that people were like, I want more Souls. There's only one company making Souls at the time. So originally it was just to describe the Souls series.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a genre title. It was just, here's the Souls likes, or here's the Souls series. Now we got Bloodborne. Here's Soulsborne. Then Souls likes spawned because people saw money and wanted to make their own.
Yeah. Well, you got like Castlevania Lords of Shadow and like The Surge and things like that pop up. But then I think where it gets really interesting is how you can take there are two games that are nothing alike each other, and yet both of them could be said to be, oh, this is a Souls-like or is trying to be a Souls-like experience. Those two games are Neo and Hollow Knight, and they are nothing alike each other.
Well, and to be fair, Neo's not really all that much like the Souls games.
Well, it was taking direct inspiration in a lot of the ways that the combat is displayed, but in so many other ways it is not, right? It is mission-based. Yeah. There's a lot of story cutscenes. It's a very heavy-handed. Like, it doesn't try to disguise its world and have you piece it together. It just gives it to you. But in terms of the raw...
It's completely
in terms of the
different.
Raw moment to moment, you're doing a similar
No, it
dance.
doesn't. It doesn't feel right. No, it doesn't.
I mean,
feel
to you it doesn't, but it is a Souls-like.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel.
Versus
have the sauce enough to get there. It's a third-person action RPG.
It's made by one of the best third-person action RPG makers of all time, right? Because it's a hack and slash game.
It's fun.
It's a Souls game that has hack and slash combat if you're good enough.
Yeah, because like
so you're just not good enough.
No, a Souls-like to me
right.
would be more so like Eliza P.
Yeah, there's a feel to it, right? There's a feel to it.
A Souls-like, but again, once you start going by feel, there's a question, because the idea of a Souls-like game is in the level design, not just the combat. So there's multiple facets to what makes a Souls-like game.
Yeah, because the Souls-like game is just a Metroidvania. Well, it is just a Metroidvania.
I mean, yeah, it's almost really all Souls likes are Zelda likes if you look at it at its core, because Souls was very much just what if we made Zelda the way that we imagined Zelda could be when we were playing.
Miyazaki's a huge Zelda fan.
If you take the other end of that spectrum then and look at a game like Hollow Knight, you can look at how the moment-to-moment gameplay of that game is nothing like Souls, right? It's a side-scrolling game. It's very platform heavy. There's combat with the bosses, but it's done in a different perspective and in a different way. You're engaging with it in a different way, even if it is still hard at that level. But in terms of its world design, both in the level design and how it tries to obfuscate its world and make you sort of piece together what's going on, the idea, the lore, the characters are mysterious in the way that Souls games are. It's kind of dreary in that same way, but has that like dark underlying comedy of like a Patches or a NPC that just starts laughing in the middle of death or whatever. And in a lot of ways, Hollow Knight gives me what I want from Souls while still giving me a different moment-to-moment gameplay. And it goes to that idea of like people are going to take different things out of any genre. Like someone's going to want that Souls for the combat and seek out games that are specifically like it in that way. And some people are going to take it for the world and want things specifically like that. And some people are going to want all of it. Right. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting all of it.
And that's why like Neo, for example, is interesting because people look at a Souls game and they might be like, oh, I want that, but with fun combat. To them, because the combat of Souls is it's poke. You're poking. You're playing Joust.
It is not for everybody. Certainly,
it's meant to be slow and plodding because it feeds into the vibe of that game.
Well, and Neo is both a Souls-like and a logical follow-up to the Ninja Gaiden games made by the same people. So you have the ability to.
Games were also hard.
I mean, they were hard as shit, and they were also based on waiting, punishing. Also, in some cases, having a perfect parry, like the Ninja Gaiden 2 just got remastered, and a lot of people were like, "Man, this sure is a 2004 Xbox game," because it has like really, really intense perfect parrying required to do anything against some bosses.
It sounds like early Xbox.
But then the element of like Neo is it does have literal souls. You have the ability to you kill things, you get souls, you then go to a bonfire and level up with a currency. That is also your experience, and that is a key facet of the Souls genre.
It does have like all the components. I just think it doesn't feel right.
Whereas God of War is not a Souls game. It has very Soulsy inspired.
Yeah,
it has very Soulsy inspired combat, but it doesn't have Souls styled level ups. It's just an action game that uses Souls combat in the same way that Souls is just a Zelda game that has different combat.
Yeah, it's true. There are too many like facets to lump it into any other one genre, unfortunately, because it has so many specific things that have now been replicated widely.
I mean, Dark Souls is a JRPG.
Right. No, precisely.
Well, God, but you want to talk about stupid genre names? Anything with J or W
that gets messy as hell.
I just think like
J and Western RPGs make sense to me just because they both have different vibes. But the thing is, like, you could just call it a turn-based RPG.
Turn-based or action RPG, right? Like those are the distinctions. Or
the regional split
narrative RPG for something like a Skyrim or a Witcher, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it gets tougher and tougher because then, like, at a point, like RPGs stop being about the numbers. Now it's just about it is just about the role-playing element. In a lot of modern Western RPG cases, like the Elder Scrolls games, where like number don't really go up anymore.
Or you have Disco Elysium, which doesn't have any combat at all, but has the full dialogue system of what or even a more advanced dialogue system than what you would get out of like a Fallout.
Yeah. I've been
like
very
RPGs.
I feel like I've been very misled over the years, but then back to led in the right direction of like what an RPG actually is, because I heard the name RPG and I was like, oh, that sounds really fun. And then I played Fallout 3. And it, in fact, was not fun to me. I recently got back into New Vegas like a couple months ago, which was actually very fun now as an adult. But as a child, it just didn't hit because it didn't feel like I was R-ing PG enough.
It's kind of become a monster that actually means two different things, right? Because it's either a combination of the two or distinctly the two, which is either number go up game or actual role-playing game, make character decisions, make world decisions. And those are two very different, like they're not mutually exclusive concepts, and that's I think where things start to get really muddy.
Yeah.
And that's the issue with like the JRPG versus WRPG versus CRPG versus SRPG, all these different letters that essentially became, they are their own genres, but because they were all lumped into the RPG genre, because RPGs were the hot shit for such a long time, you kind of had to call your game an RPG.
Yeah.
And then at a point, every game was also an RPG, just like every game is also a third-person action game nowadays, usually. GTA 3 is an RPG. GTA
Valid.
San Andreas is an RPG.
Valid.
Because you have experience and you can level up. By that alone, and also not to say anything about the fact that you go around and, power fantasy yourself as a Grand Theft Auto-er,
Yeah. Justin, what's your least favorite genre name?
We talked about it already. It's the roguelike and the roguelite. I don't like them.
Yeah, what makes
they're so close in terms of words.
Yeah, I don't like them either.
It gets even worse because I've heard people be like, sorry, I interrupted you. Just.
No, you can keep going.
Oh, it's gotten. I saw a thing recently that was like, people are wrong about this discourse. A roguelike is actually specifically, it has to be just like Rogue, so it has to be turn-based, and it has to be top-down, and if it's a roguelike, it's just anything other than that's not that, even though commonly, like Kevin said earlier, a roguelike is simply one where you keep upgrades and progress between runs, whereas a roguelike is one that has permadeath in the truest sense of you are starting over from the beginning. And even then, there are games in the genre that have blurred the line between the two by saying you do restart every time, but your pool of possible items you can get each time increases, rather than actual permanent upgrades to your character itself.
Like Dead Cells is a roguelike by just about every definition, but it has a lot of roguelite elements that, as far as I know, with the history of that genre, have helped influence it as it developed in the same way, not to the same extent, but in the same way as Binding of Isaac. Because in Dead Cells, you have the ability to... There's two currencies. There's a currency that you lose, like souls, when you die, and then there's a currency that you will keep, like, let's say, gold. And with gold, you can buy permanent upgrades to in some games cases, or in the Dead Cells case, you'll buy the ability to find a different upgrade or item in the world that adds to your pool, like Brody was mentioning. And like that almost becomes roguelite at a point because you are starting over, but you're maintaining some progress.
Yeah, and even beyond that, it gives you a lot of customization options. Once you get far enough into the game, you do unlock a specific permanent upgrade that allows you to basically to guarantee shops have a specific pool of items and to re-roll every shop like 5 times for a little bit of money. So if you're playing the game, experimenting each run as you're getting new weapons, and then decide, okay, I know which weapons I like, get far enough into the game and you can basically guarantee your run will be with those weapons.
Yeah.
You can have a build in a roguelike, which is kind of insane.
It's I think at a point the genre has kind of recoalesced into one because there are roguelike gatekeeping purists that want specifically rogue, but just about every indie game nowadays is procedurally generated or has that as the buzzword. Obviously not literally every single one, but there's a whole genre of indie developer that just exists to make roguelikes because they also enjoy roguelikes, to the point that Balatro is a roguelike.
Yeah, and like when roguelikes and roguelites and all that stuff started getting really popular, that's when I started recognizing them, and then everyone just kept saying the word roguelite, and I'm like, those words are really close, and
it's messy.
You could have just made it a lot cleaner
It's the consequence of being a medium where people just write things down instead of talking to each other.
Yeah.
Like that's the problem there, is if you had to say roguelite versus roguelike several times to somebody to their face, you would immediately think, we got to think of a better name for this. Just like if you say the name Metroidvania, your parents feel shame for you.
Well, you know what else?
That's why I just say Brainia, baby.
If you want to feel shame,
well, you know what else?
Patreon.com/Crub, Nicco. What are we doing on Patreon?
I was going to say, you know what else should be written and not spoken? The CRUBCAST.
God, we just put out a newsletter. We do put out a newsletter every week.
I like the idea of
every
writing
Monday
sonnets
now,
every week.
if you join the free tier of Patreon every Monday, you get a newsletter from us written by our wonderful Chris Mykonos fan that tells you what we have in store, both as Crub and as, individuals if one of us has a project coming out. So you can get a sneak peek at what's in store. You can decide if that is worth it to you to, up your membership to, the video tier, the audio tier, to the $2 throw a quarter at Brody tier, where you can ask the Patreon question of the week. You can also join via the YouTube channel join button, the member button. You can subscribe on Twitch, and you get similar perks in our Discord at crub.org/join. So check out the Patreon. We have a bunch of really cool stuff, hundreds of hours of bonus content, and it's ever growing with episodes that you might not see here on the audio or video realm for months before they actually come out. You can see them early in full video glory and see all of our white guy faces here at patreon.com/crub. White Guy Podcast.
Eventually, we're going to get in trouble. If you keep calling it that, we're either going to get in trouble, or we are going to attract an audience that we do not want.
No, that's but fair. We're calling it that ironically.
I do want to jump around a little bit, mainly because there are a couple points brought up by our Twitch chat. We do stream these live at twitch.tv/crub_official. You can check that out as well for exclusive pre and post show content. There were a couple comments regarding, the differences between RPGs, like how Western RPGs tend to be about building a character for yourself. JRPGs are about the story and the party. And that is very true. Or about the stats in the party. It's almost a cultural difference in individualism versus collectivism in a lot of ways.
Yeah, actually, it's pretty cool of a parallel to
Western RPGs are individual,
Japanese culture.
Western RPGs are individual. Japanese RPGs or JRPGs tend to be more of a collectivist approach where the whole comes together of your team. A couple times I meant to bring up what somebody else mentioned in the chat, which was the name Doom Clone, which was the original name for the FPS, also known as Halo Killer for a while, then Call of Duty Killer.
Now we have Boomu Shooter, which I feel like has settled into its sort of micro-genre space, right?
Yeah,
because when you say Boomer Shooter, I know what Doom. You mean.
Yeah, people wanted that specific kind of game, and that's really good for those people that they have that genre. I don't want to make it seem like I'm against the idea of genre names. I'm against the ones you make up yourself.
Yeah. Every platform fighter was a Smash killer.
Mm-hmm.
Smash clone.
Platform Fighter is a great example. I like that one has propped up in place of just calling everything a Smash clone, because it's like you can have you have a PlayStation All-Stars that is trying to do what it's trying to do, even both taking from Smash and trying to separate itself. But then we've gotten ones that they don't have to be these big crossover games, right? Rivals of Aether. The other ones that you play, just
multiverses. We have Brawlhalla, you have multiverses, you have combo babies,
Shovel Knight Duel,
Shovel Knight Showdown,
yes. I appreciate. I didn't love Platform Fighter as a name at first when that was still being litigated as a wider forum discussion before it locked in. I had always called it Brawler, but that obviously is not really as doable now, because we do have beat 'em up games resurging in recent years, and those are often called brawlers as well. So thankfully, Platform Fighter is the one that did stick and that did grow on me.
Because brawler would also get a little bit confusing when talking about the games themselves, because there are archetypes of fighters in the games that are called brawlers.
That too, yeah.
So it makes sense that it has its own name now, and I think it's probably better off for that genre, because now you can make a Smash-like game and not just be called, you're just trying to be Smash Bros.
Not just be insulted for it like everyone was for about a decade. Yeah. That was a fun time. One I want to bring up is another one that's, I think, existed prior to a specific group of indie developers starting to coin the term themselves, which is the expressive platformer. Nicco, what do you think an expressive platformer is?
I imagine it's one where the velocity at which you land on the platform matters and plays a different sound.
That is not what I expected. That is not at all what I expected you were going to say. Okay. I thought it was going to be, it is a platformer with a goofy character that has cool face.
Which is more of a mascot platformer, which is also a disaster of a name.
Well, there's a difference between a mascot platformer and an expressive platformer by that definition I just made up, because expressive platformers are also mascot platformers, but they have funky faces.
Is that really just it? Is it just like...
No. It's a platformer Okay. An expressive platformer, Nicco. I want eye contact here. An expressive platformer is a platformer with enough move options that you can express yourself.
Are you kidding?
Which actually ties into a conversation that Nicco and I and a couple of people were having earlier today.
I want to kill myself.
We were kind of discussing the idea that the skateboarding games, whether it be, you know, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater or Bomb Rush Cyberfunk or anything in between there, they're kind of platformers in their own right, but they're ones that Nicco can get behind in a way that he can't with a lot of others.
Because he can express himself.
No, they're not platformers because you're going
from platform
lateral.
to platform. Yeah, like a platformer. Yeah.
You're going laterally.
Yeah.
You can go laterally in a platform. That's what Spyro's based on.
Because
Spyro's also like Souls games are Spyro likes also.
Shut up.
No, I'm right. Because
no, you're not.
The Souls games took heavily from the Spyro the Dragon games that Japan really didn't get.
And it's crazy that they all took from Croc.
I mean, I'll get behind
every
this.
game's a Croc-like.
I'll get behind this because I want Stuart Copeland to make a soundtrack for a Souls game. So, like, I'm behind this.
That would be really weird.
That's what I want.
I'm for it in pure concept alone, because I just want to hear really offbeat drums that he just syncs up with a tempo at the end.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He
quantizes the music after the fact while making noise, and that's just the background to a Souls game.
Dude, I want it to be Stuart Copeland on the jukebox. I want it to be Conan O'Brien on the writing, and Miyazaki on the game design. Dude, it'd be perfect. It'd be the perfect video game.
Yeah, so expressive platformer is Brody was pretty sure, and I do think he's kind of right, but I can't find the exact source of it. Either a YouTuber made up that word, or it was specifically coined by an indie developer trying to make their game stand out as a marketing thing, which I'm fine with in the sense that if you call your game a Halo killer, you then have to try and stand up and live up to being a Halo killer. If you call your game an expressive platformer, you need to live up to making that genre name yourself.
Yeah. And in the very least, in regards to that dev, he has specifically cited games that he's basing that definition off of, whether or not he made it up or got it from somewhere else.
Yeah, I could not find the origin of it when we were first talking about this off air a while back. But for those that don't know, we're talking about the developer of Demon Turf and Demon Tide, also of Slime Son before that. Fabraz. I'm not sure how the company name / username is pronounced. Seems like a really good dude. You know, his games are really interesting and really cool in that, like, they do fit what genre name he's making. I do have a personal disagreement with again making your own genre to begin with. But if there's someone that's going to do it, it probably should be a game designer rather than like a forum or Reddit.
Yeah.
So he's there's an elephant in the room that we have to bring up.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, the Strand type game.
You know, that's fair.
And I don't know that I'm comfortable calling that a genre. To be honest,
it's not a genre, but I do think there are Strand type elements, and I don't have a better thing to call them currently. That just lets you know what they are.
It is just the one of its type at this moment, but like,
I mean, there have been other games that have used Strand type elements. For example, Strand as a concept, for those that maybe aren't familiar, is what if we took the idea of shared notes in Dark Souls and we made them only helpful?
Yeah.
Because in Dark Souls, you can use them as a way to troll. Yeah. You can use the interactive, shared world elements of your game to mess with people if you want to be that kind of player. And that's totally allowed, totally accepted. In the Strand games, or at least the first one, we don't know about the second one, you specifically work together without ever knowing that you are. You'll see something on the ground, you'll pick it up, you'll take it back for somebody else who lost it. Pokemon Legends Arceus is a Strand type game because it has that exact thing where people will drop stuff in the overworld when they die, and you can go pick it up and get a reward for helping other people.
What I'm hearing is that we should be calling these journey likes.
See, but it's also God, Brody. That's a throwback, man.
Do you see my face, Brody?
That's a hell of a pull, dude.
It's. I mean, the ideas go back to way before Death Stranding. He's just the first one to really put.
Brody, do you see his face?
I see
Do
his
you
face.
see his face?
Oh, I see it. I'm eating it right up.
Do you see his face?
But
I think I don't know the journey fits the definition of what he was trying to get at with the Strand type game and the definition that we have then taken and run with.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I would prefer like a asynchronous collectivism, but that's a bit too involved a name.
Sometimes someone gives it just a nice brandable word like Strand and it just sticks, right? Like that's kind of how these things happen.
And the worst part is like he was right. There is no game that I can think of prior to Death Stranding that did what Death Stranding was doing.
Yeah, at least in totality
of that, collective effort of a game where you are just only helping other people by way of those hints or by way of your ghost in the world, because you could call it a Super Mario Kart like at that point.
Mario Wonder specifically takes the idea and runs with it a little bit, right? You have those ghost checkpoints. You can place your own checkpoints down, and like other people, when they die, they can run into them and pop back up, and they're still alive. And so it almost becomes like this relay race when you're getting through the levels, if you have that feature turned on. Another one, Nicco had just played Inscription, and there's a moment in that game, and it's only a moment, right? Like it's hard. You couldn't call that a Strand type game because it's a single moment that it happens. Yeah, but there's a moment where you are able to create your own card, and you can, if anyone else is online, that card will be sent to them in the exact same battle that you're doing, and you will receive a card from another person. If it fails,
no more details.
You know what? You're right.
I have a question. I want to call that Wonder Trade like. Because that's just Pokemon Wonder Trade, but with a card.
See, but is Wonder Trade a Strand like though? Is the question.
Kind of.
No,
I've done a Wonder Trade Nuzlocke before, so that's kind of like a Strand type.
Nuzlocks are kind of just the roguelikes. We should call.
Oh yeah! Here we go again.
This is why names matter. You can't just do this. You can't do what we're doing and just make shit up.
Here we go again. We're just making similes.
I've tried to tell you guys that Zelda's a platformer, and you guys won't listen to me.
And that brings us, speaking of Zelda, to probably the ultimate one that we have to talk about in this episode. Probably briefly, because I don't know how much we need to litigate this one. What in God's name is an immersive sim?
Okay,
so.
I'll give a quick rundown if you want me to.
No. We need Nicco's definition.
I need to get up close for this one, dude, because I'm not gonna lie to you.
Don't lie to me, Nicco.
I think they're just first-person shooters.
I think that Sonic 06 is an immersive sim.
I think that The Sims is an immersive sim.
I'm being serious. Sonic 06 is kind of an immersive sim.
This is an incredibly painful introduction to this discussion.
You started Metroidvania in my brain, so you deserve this.
Listen, I'm trying to immerse the audience into the simulation that we are doing of a podcast.
Justin's immersed. He looks like he's he's all up in there. But
immersive sim is really the expressive platformer of shooter.
Shut up.
So an immersive sim,
bro. Shut up.
Is another one of those names that was coined by a game developer trying to think of how to describe a feeling they have with a very specific subset of games. And I don't think immersive sim is a good name. Genuinely, I think that is in the Metroidvania tier of name, because an immersive sim is, I don't even know how, Brody, I'll let you give your definition. I don't know how to describe it.
So in a lot of games, the basis of it is, first of all, have you ever played a game that lets you choose whether or not you tackle a situation, violently with combat, or stealthily, or talk your way out of a situation, or beyond that, a game that gives you the ability to tackle a situation in just about any way you want from multiple angles? So a fantastic example is the Deus Ex games.
I need to jump in really quick. Immersive sims are, by what you have just described, right, and by what I've played of immersive sims, an immersive sim is what I imagined an RPG to be before I knew what an RPG was.
So an immersive
many
sim,
are similar.
Let me bounce off that. An immersive sim is to RPGs what a Metroidvania is to Metroidvanias.
Yeah.
The level ups are in your mind.
God.
the level ups are in your mind.
Basically, there's multiple ways to tackle a situation given the tools that you have. So every tool will almost invariably have multiple use cases rather than just like, oh, it's a grappling hook, so I go onto the grapple and that's all that it does. It's more like, oh, I have
rope. You have rope that you can use to tie things together, or it can be a grappling hook.
Sure,
for that metaphor.
I have a lightning ability that can power up machinery, but it can also electrify the ground.
Yeah.
Like they'll give you a string, they'll give you a stick, they'll give you a pond, they'll give you a fish, but they won't explicitly
everyone says
those things independently of each other.
Yeah, everyone says that Breath of the Wild is an immersive sim. It's like a baby's first immersive sim in a lot of ways. I would go further and say that Ocarina of Time is an immersive sim because you have ice arrows that you can use to shoot the water and make ice.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah, there's multiple use cases, right? And
that's a joke for anyone who doesn't know. But
so this is terrible.
Yeah, it's awful.
Well, I'm going to make it worse. I'm going to enter the idea of a systemic game.
CRUBCAST, I'm going to make it worse.
I'm going to make it worse.
That's our new slogan.
That's a good slogan. Welcome to the Crubcast, where we make it worse every single week. Which we do. The number of times we've said this is our worst one yet, we say
and it being true.
And it being true.
Yeah.
The Crubcast, where things get to the
Piss Olaf episode.
We're the American empire of podcasts.
We make it worse. We make it worse every week.
But so you hit on the word systemic, Brody, and that's where I was going to go next. So continue with your thought.
Well, right. So the idea that a lot of these power-ups, whether they have multiple use cases or not, there are some instances where they are still static in their multiple use cases of, yes, the grapple hook can grapple, but it can also pull enemies or something. But it's these two specific use cases versus systemic, where we begin to see you light the grass on fire, which creates an updraft, and then you use a balloon to lift up your raft into the air. Like, this is all things that people have done in Breath of the Wild. Or you slide down the mountain on your shield and use the time stop thing to end up ejecting you like super far.
Right.
And like your abusive systems that coalesce together, kind of in a way that like Nicco, a roguelike synergy.
God.
The way that exists, but in terms of like actual gameplay elements of multiple coming together to form different chain reactions and such.
It just always Justin cry.
It just always feels like the thing that you are doing, the thing that you're holding, does the thing it says it does, no matter the context. Like generally speaking.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. That's a better way of calling it than an immersive sim.
Yeah.
It's just like, 'cause the immersive sim genre essentially fits like 5 games. Like, it's the Deus Ex games,
right.
It's
Prey.
System Shock,
Dishonored.
It's Prey, it's Dishonored, and
Deathloop.
Bioshock,
and
maybe?
Bioshock.
Half-Life. Bioshock,
Thief.
no, Bioshock's not an immersive sim. If you ever talk to anybody who likes the name immersive sims or likes the genre, and you say Bioshock is an immersive sim, they might actually shoot you for real.
Wait, no, but it totally is. It's that is one of the progenitors.
People push hard on that one being an immersive sim for some reason.
That is absolutely not what I've heard.
I've
heard
an
the exact
immersive sim.
It's such an immersive sim.
I've heard that it is an immersive sim.
Not to the same extent like a Dishonored is, where
because
Bioshock doesn't let you do
a
stealth as much.
Because it has such a linear narrative, I think is the push that people have. Because it has the arrow on the ground to tell you exactly where to go. It is baby's first immersive sim to other people.
For the
like
people
in terms of moment to moment, it's an immersive sim. I guess in terms of a broader stroke, it's not narratively.
Either way, let me make my case for why Sonic 06 is an immersive sim.
God,
you have physics-based systemic gameplay.
Yep.
And what Brody just described as a systemic gameplay where things have multiple purposes in the world, the crates that you can break can also be used to launch you into the air.
Silver, yep.
Not just a silver, as Sonic.
You can do the spin kick thing on the floor.
Yeah, you can slide under things. You can unlock gems at your specific leisure, depending on how many rings you have, that will allow you to just fly forever. So you can use those to access different areas in the world in a way that you would not otherwise have been able to do. And each of these has multiple uses, because the one that lets you jump forever is also the one that makes you really small.
Right.
Ant-Man is an immersive sim.
People have been propping up Project 06 as like one of the best Sonic products of all time, and I do want to get the chance to play it eventually. So maybe once I do, I'll come around.
Project 06, Nicco.
Oh,
the Project 06 is the PC fan mod port.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was
Project
like, what,
06
Brody?
is... The thing about 06 people that always have stood by is that its levels could be good if the gameplay was good. Project 06 makes the gameplay good.
Interesting.
And people really enjoy it.
Case in point, the best level that any Sonic game has maybe ever had is the Shadow Generations Kingdom Valley, which is a Sonic 06 level, but they said, what if we made the gameplay good, but also still kept everything about it that was Sonic 06?
Yeah, and people actually have sworn by Kingdom Valley in Project 06 of like, there are now so many pathways that are so fun to access and things like that. So apparently it was always good. It just played like shit.
Yeah.
Crazy.
There are other parts to my Sonic 06 immersive sim joke that I do not have currently memorized, but I am correct.
Hey, man, I'm with you.
So take that.
I
Indiana
don't
Jones
agree with you, but I'll
also-
agree with you.
Indiana Jones is also an immersive sim.
That's an imsim.
Actually, it kind of is. It's a very light imsim, but it is very. It's weird. It's in the Hitman like family of pseudo immersive sims because you could also argue Hitman is
Yeah,
an
I
immersive
would
sim.
totally argue
Is
Hitman is an immersive sim.
Hitman,
100%
yeah.
Hitman is an immersive sim.
Has ImSim elements, certainly.
And the thing is about that is it's nothing like any other imsim out there, which is what makes it so funky because all of what I consider an imsim is what the original definition of a sandbox game was meant to be.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's fair.
Because sandbox games just became big open worlds, but sandbox was literally meant to be you can do what you want in a way with the tools you're given. You can do what you want, and like Brody said, each thing has multiple use cases. So,
How would you guys feel about the definition of sandbox with a goal?
that's tough,
sort
'cause
of
the
more of
sandbox has been ruined at this point.
Yeah, sandbox means an entirely different thing, and I think it's useful because I wouldn't want to necessarily play an immersive sim and have to then also deal with specifically an open world in the way that like a Spider-Man or a Breath of the Wild is.
Yeah.
Sometimes, sure, but sometimes I want that more curated, like densely populated small area experience of like a Deus Ex,
Yeah.
or like a Dishonored. So
Indiana Jones in that same way.
Yeah, and
less so, to be clear, because it is just like there are imsim elements in it. I don't think it would necessarily qualify as an imsim, but I'm going to say it is because anyone who still calls them immersive sims deserves to be upset.
well, and to what
Is
Nicco,
Just Cause an imsim?
Just cut.
Is Just Cause an imsim?
That's a sandbox.
That's
like,
a
that
sandbox.
is actually a sandbox.
Yeah, but it's a sandbox with systemic elements, especially 4, because 4 decided to go like really hard on the systemic stuff. They added a bunch of new stuff. They were very clearly inspired by Breath of the Wild.
And that word systemic is also, again, to go back, that is more important to the imsim than the rest of the name imsim, because the idea of a thing being systemic is also just called, at a point, if you really think about when this term was being coined, the idea of systemic gameplay is just, it's got a physics engine. That's a lot of what the systemic gameplay ended up amounting to in a lot of these games. And
right,
so
but then I would hardly call Portal an imsim, right? Because there's always a defined definition of what you're supposed to do, even if you can combine elements of things together.
Yeah. But I mean, you could. It's tough because there are multiple ways to solve some Portal puzzles. So then there's also that. Like there are some puzzles that are only linear, and like that, there being only one way to do a thing is what kind of breaks the idea of an immersive sim. But yeah.
Who knows?
And to we should probably close out for anyone who's not familiar with the immersive sim genre. Why a game like a Fallout New Vegas is not an immersive sim? I'm not going to, but we should probably do that.
Yeah, I'm not going to either.
Well, you have said Skyrim is an immersive sim, Kevin. You've made that claim.
I think that was just to upset you. I'm not going to lie.
I'll say I've never played Fallout New Vegas, but I have played
New
Skyrim,
Vegas,
and I can tell you that's not an imsim.
The idea is that New Vegas, because you are gated by your level number, there are certain situations where you might not have a high enough level to get out of a situation by conversation or by hacking or by lockpicking. Oblivion is what you could consider closer to an imsim because you can still attempt all of those things. You can still attempt to lockpick something even if your skill level is not high enough to do so.
Yeah, it more fits the definition of something like a Divinity Original Sin or a Baldur's Gate. right?
Yeah.
Those have a lot more elements where you can kind of play around, experiment with the different mechanics and find different solutions. You're right, where New Vegas is like, yes, there will be different solutions, but you're kind of going to be locked into maybe one or only a few of them, depending on what you're speccing into stats-wise.
Yeah. Whereas like with an Oblivion or I forget if Morrowind had lockpicking, but Morrowind would probably fit even better because you can just kill anybody in Morrowind.
Fair.
Whatever the case, that is why certain RPGs or Bethesda games are not immersive sims. And if you say that either of them are immersive sims to somebody who likes that genre name, again, likely to be systemically shot.
Systemically
Like,
The real world is pretty systemic, you know?
I mean, I go
it does
outside and
work
I'm like, man,
in the real
this is like
world,
a sandbox out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a sandbox.
And
out
speaking
here.
of sandboxes and systemic gameplay, you can do whatever you want with the Crubscriber question of the week form that you get by joining us at patreon.com/crub or the other join options that we said earlier in the episode. You can find all those in the show notes or the description or crub.org if you want to find them. We have a very special, kind of similar to the topic Crubscriber question today from the one True Blue who asks us, with games like Balatro, Vampire Survivors, and even Pokemon Pocket, do you think that mobile gaming could gain some popularity over AAA games, or at least have the popularity boom it once had in the Angry Birds era of mobile games? Now, obviously, that relates more because of specifically Balatro than anything else with that that topic, because we did talk about roguelikes, and Balatro is a good example of a roguelike where if someone's like, oh, if you like The Binding of Isaac, you would love Balatro. That goes to Brody's point of why game genres are unique in that they can be nothing alike and still hit that same feeling in your brain.
Yeah.
Which is also interesting too, because like in terms of recommendations like that, like I would say if you like Binding of Isaac, I would say you're more likely to like something like Cult of the Lamb than Balatro, even though they're both roguelikes. And that's just kind of where.
But where does that go to mobile games, Justin?
No. I mean, we were just talking about the
we were just talking about it, but
yeah. No, I'm sorry.
In terms of
I was just
games,
giving you shit.
I feel like
swear jar.
I feel like it kind of already. No, you're good. I feel like it kind of already has. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it kind of already is.
Yeah. Oh, big
taking
time.
a little bit of the wind off of the AAA sales, just because the install base is everybody, and if you have a mobile game that is successful and is a good game on mobile, not just a game that you have and that you then took and put on mobile, I think that you have a very big recipe for success.
I know a lot of people who have converted from Balatro on PC or on console to then going double dipping and getting it on mobile. I don't know as many people that have done the opposite direction.
I went the other direction.
I'm actually the other way. Yeah. I bought it on mobile first.
I think it's an interesting question because I think, Justin, you're right in that mobile gaming does have popularity over AAA gaming. Most gaming revenue is in mobile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like it just is.
Well, and think about this, right? Like, all of us, like, we play video games. A lot of my coworkers don't play video games. And some do, but more than that play mobile games, right? Like my mom plays mobile games. My dad plays mobile games. Like people play mobile games. They're not serious. Like they're not like playing super competitively, generally speaking, but some people,
I think it's tough too because the three examples that the one True Blue had made are Balatro, made by one person, Vampire Survivors, I believe a small team. I'm not really sure because I'm not quite sure what that game is, and I'm at this point too afraid to ask. Pokemon Pocket is made by 700,000 people. Like that game is not made by a small team. That is a AAA game that is intended to be a FOMO simulator. Yep. And like to the point that they took Pokemon trading card games gameplay and got rid of it for the sake of collecting cards.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Brady.
I think the reason that we don't perceive mobile to be as big as it is because especially within a lot of the gaming communities and journalists and developers, it's kind of a dirty word, right? Like we still treat it as a dirty word, even though now it's been more and more accepted. Which
is fascinating because the main reason, not the main reason, a main reason that Fortnite won was because it was available on mobile. PUBG took forever to come to mobile. PUBG came first, and the other thing was that it was a paid game.
Yeah.
But, and again, it feels more like Fortnite was built with mobile in mind.
Yep. Free and accessible.
It definitely wasn't, but they just pivoted really quickly and stole everything, and it worked.
Because I feel like Fortnite being as bright and poppy and colorful as it is, it's easier to see on a mobile screen as opposed to a PUBG where everything's muddy and all kind of the same.
Also easier to sell to kids.
That worked out. That worked out, but remember, Fortnite was a base builder game.
That is true. Fortnite was a tower defense game.
It was a base builder survive the night game. And then PUBG came out and took the world by storm, and Epic was like, well, that was made in our engine. What if we just did that? And then that
as a side mode, yeah.
Yeah. They just rushed it out as a quick capitalization and made it free, and it took over the world.
And Battle Royale, that's another kind of genre, micro genre, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that one makes sense to me.
That one's a macro genre at this point, Brody.
At this point, but that it didn't start that way, right?
No.
It's a defining feature of like what that game is. Like if a game is a battle royale, it is nothing above a battle royale. You know, like you can have a battle royale third person shooter. Yeah. It is a battle royale first because the entire gameplay system is based on that. And also battle royales, roguelikes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Actually, at this point, absolutely. I think it was funny that you had a game like Call of Duty, and before Warzone was a thing, they experimented by just putting battle royale modes in their COD games, the way that TDM and Search and Destroy and all of that was there. They went, okay, yeah, here's the battle royale mode, here's the zombies mode. So it's interesting to see how it evolved out of that.
Yeah,
it's interesting too because battle royale named after the movie.
A movie.
Yeah. Oh, crazy! I didn't know that.
It's named after a movie called Battle Royale, yeah.
Which is like one of the first death game, like Hunger Games type movies.
Yeah.
Okay.
We should start calling all Battle Royales death race games.
Yeah,
Or we can just call them all Hunger Games.
Death race games. That's what I'm going to start calling
that new movie.
Souls games.
I really like the Hunger Likes, man.
Hunger Likes.
But to go back to the question, yes. I think that mobile games are at that point.
Yeah.
It's just that developers now are not just porting games from console to put them on mobile, because when that was the wave at the beginning of mobile, it didn't work because you realized very quickly that you wanted these games to have a controller and you didn't want to have to be holding the phone sideways like this and have your controller take up 50% of your screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so now things are just made with a touchscreen in mind, and it works a lot better, and it actually works well.
Yeah.
It's also just the monetization structure that it allowed it in the first place for mobile games to boom the way they did, because people there are hundreds of studios that went out of business because of the iPhone. Like game developers went out of business because suddenly, why would you spend $60 on this game for, consoles when you could just give your kid an iPod Touch and spend less than $1 on a game?
Yeah.
Remember how upset people were at Mario Run being $10?
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because I actually think that the model of I know that it'll never work because people are just not accustomed to it, but I did like that model. I bought Mario Run and I had an enjoyable time with it. I've recently
don't say you like that.
But you bought Pocket Camp.
Yeah, I bought Pocket Camp just before it went up in price by complete coincidence, because I didn't know it was going to do that. I bought Pocket Camp for $10, and as someone who I want to play more Animal Crossing, right? I kind of fell off of New Horizons pretty quick because I terraformed my whole town and then just couldn't get back into it.
Yeah.
I want to do that, and Pocket Camp has so many things that I think were facilitated by the fact that it was a free to play, microtransaction heavy kind of gotcha game in a lot of ways. It had so many new pieces of furniture and features that the main game don't have. But it also has it's missing a lot of features as well, but it made me go, in the next mainline Animal Crossing game, I want to see a lot of this stuff implemented. Not the stuff that is clearly meant to be microtransaction-y. Luckily in the complete edition version, they've kind of rebalanced the game and they've taken away microtransactions completely. So they kind of shower you with enough money that you can mainly avoid that kind of part of the game. But all the mechanics there still exist, so you have to kind of put up with them. But to see the potential of where the series could go based on what was clearly a very good return on a very quick turnaround for that game was really cool. And it fits that. The thing the mobile space was really good at, I think, especially in the last few years, is doing what Nintendo wanted to do with their handhelds, but at least to me, never seemed to click, which was having those more bite-sized, mission-based, pop in for 5 minutes when you're on the toilet experiences that I don't use a DS for. If I have my DS out, or even my Switch like out of the dock, like I'm probably sitting in bed for hours playing a game the same way I would on a console. But if I'm on mobile, I'm on the toilet playing a quick round of Marvel Snap, or I'm on the bus, checking in on my Animal Crossing villagers. Like,
I'm gonna bounce off of that and get to the topic we were talking about. I think what you were saying there was the next point I was going to bring up, beyond the fact that mobile games are just inherently a lower accessibility cost, because also don't you guys have phones?
Yeah.
Like that is a thing that is just a reality. Like, yes, consoles are getting more and more popular despite what you might actually think. But you all have a phone. They are a necessity in at least a modern, Western life, or modern, first world life. I know we don't use the word first world anymore, but I don't remember what the proper term is. Developed nation life? That still feels weird.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. I like these country micro-genres.
In the privileged lifestyle that we all live in when we are consuming this podcast.
You're not getting on the subway without your phone, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing, to go to your point, Brody, that Nintendo did struggle with, is that, at a point that was what they wanted it to be. But then the iPhone became as powerful or more powerful than a Nintendo Switch anyway, which is the point that I was going to get to, was like, you can play Fortnite on your phones because your phones are more powerful than a Switch for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
So we're at the point where the tech curve has made phones so wildly accessible for just about any game that you can just do that. Or if you don't want to, you can get Game Pass and stream a game to your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I even have my wife very graciously for my birthday last year gave me a Backbone, which is one of those like game
you plug it into your phone and you get.
Yeah. And so now I can, there's certain Steam games I can stream, or there's emulators that I can play, like Bugs Life on my phone, and get like, it's got the retro achievements.
Bugs Life?
You always find a way.
Bugs
Brody.
Life PS1 on my phone with the retro achievements of Duck Station like linked to it. It's really good. I wish the audio wasn't so bad, but
I'm hitting the bumper.
I'm
not hitting the bumper.
It's one of those things where, again, to circle back to the main question, mobile gaming has surpassed AAA gaming, and it's why AAA gaming is in the state that it's currently in. Like, we're just looking at a way.
Now you got to find a way to put microtransactions in it.
Yeah, we're looking at the way to pay off the fact that AAA games have a higher entry cost that makes casual players not want to spend that money.
If I'm being honest, like, a lot of it comes down to like games just have grown out of control big in both terms of budget that it takes to make the game, and then therefore the amount of content that's put in with that budget is a lot.
People need to go smaller in scope, basically.
Yeah, like I'm a big
what
proponent.
Was it recently? People have said that the AA genre has died, which is true, but it's weird to see the people in charge actually say that.
Yeah,
and it makes sense because the opportunity cost of a AA game is a lot lower than the opportunity cost of a AAA game.
Yeah.
You can spend $400 million on a game, and if you get $1 billion back, that's better than spending $5 million on a game and getting $10 million back.
Right. So if you're a game developer out there that happens to be listening to the Crubcast, and Smallin.
And also, again, hi, nice to meet you. I hope you're from Norway.
This is a very long roundabout answer to the Patreon question of the week that we did, to be fair, answer. But the thing is also, there's an element of too big to fail by way of the big studios, because a lot of the budget cost of a game is the amount of people involved. And the issue became, once games went to HD and then progressively got more and more HD, you need more people to put in that work for longer.
Certainly. But a
$400 million game might only be a game that has a couple thousand people, which are a lot of people working on a game for a couple years. Yeah. Like, it's really easy to spend $100 million on a game nowadays. Yeah, Insomniac has 400 employees and, outsourcing as well. And they spent, 3 total years on Spider-Man 2? and it cost $300 million that
Well,
they didn't even want to spend.
Kevin, is
they didn't want that money.
You fire like 75% of the workforce 3 months before the game comes out and don't put their name in the credits.
Oh, true. That's the right way of doing it. But to that end, like it's much more of a risk for the major publishers. As much as we don't like to look at the big guy in the situation here, the reason it's not happening currently, and the reason that we're in this reckoning state that we are, is that it's too much of a risk relative to the reward for a developer to say, okay, I'm going to build an office to house these 40 people, and they're going to spend 2 years on a game that might make the $15 million back. Mm-hmm. Maybe. Like, that's why you see, the major console teams tend to outsource their AA and single A stuff to indies, because you can say, hey, we're going to give you $10 million, but then we don't have to worry about as much of the blowback if it gets delayed. We can just say, well, we gave you your money, it's canceled.
Yeah.
They can cut bait without feeling like, well, we've also been spending, as a factor in our budget, we're also spending that money and knowingly spending that money on electricity, on office rent, on equipment. Like, if you're giving that to somebody else and you're giving it to a random studio, which is what Sony's done a lot. Like, let's go back to PlayStation All-Stars. When that game was started up, Sony went to a handful of people that they knew from working with them prior and said, hey, we want you to open a studio. If it goes well, we're going to acquire you, but we need to stay away from the risk. So we're going to give you the money to start up. You hire people. You get all your structure in place. You use this money to pay your rent, you use this money to hire, use this money to scout, use this money to make the game, and then you just provide stuff to us at the milestones that we request so that we can, know that you're using it wisely. And then if it works out, we will acquire you in the end, and you will get a lot of money by way of being acquired. But we're essentially outsourcing the cost to somebody else to have to worry about, so that we don't see it on our books. Because if we see it on our books, the game's not going to get much further, because now it sucks to fire somebody or a studio, because then now we have to sell off the office space. We have to deal with all the logistics. We have to figure out where the equipment goes. If that's somebody else's problem, then it's just simpler to say, hey, can a Bridge of Spirits developers, we'll give you $5 million. Instead of, hey, we're going to acquire you, or we're going to have our own studio break off into a smaller team and make a game that costs only $10 million. But hey, studio heads, you can't take any of those developers from that game and move them onto your game when you need to.
Yeah, to the point where
there's so many moving parts.
Like, they did that with the Medieval remake, right? Like,
all right, fellas, I'm not going to lie to you. I think we've hit the nail on the head with this question, and I need to use the restroom. So I'm fine calling it here if you guys are.
Yeah, I think my final takeaway is just, people, and this is more than just video games, but like, people need to be more okay with they need to be happier with smaller victories.
Yeah.
Victories, we still want the victories, but be happier even if they're smaller.
Yep. I mean, I'll add one more thing to that, which is like with Spider-Man and with God of War and with a lot of games, those are the two that come to mind with the Sony example I was using. Those games got clowned on for reusing animations. More games need to be like Yakuza. More games need to reuse all their shit. If you make a thing, it better be used 12 times over the next 15 years. I don't care that it's the same.
Good enough.
Aligned on that.
You don't need to make a slightly different animation and spend, probably 100 hours of total work on one animation and then polish it up over and over and over again.
Yeah, I will say I don't mind that Elden Ring reused stuff from like Dark Souls and Dark Souls 3. I don't like that they reused it so many times within the same game simply to make it bigger. But that's a different conversation for another day. Reusing assets, thumbs up.
It's one of those things that the Ratchet games did very well before, that they while they were more common because they had to reuse stuff again and again, just A, to save money on the limited budgets they had, but B, because they're making a game every 10 months. Yakuza is the same way. You reuse all your shit, and if you teach your audience that it is an endearing thing to do, then it's not going to be something where, and to be fair, nobody who matters is actually clowning on a game for, it has these reused assets, or, oh, I'm Digital Foundry, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has weird lighting and the water doesn't move when you swim.
Who cares?
Like,
Who
shut
cares?
the hell up.
Yeah.
Shut the hell up.
That's a thumbs down from me.
And that's the problem. Like, that's the issue, is that, like Brody said, we need to have better expectations as players if we want games to then be more common and cheaper.
I would be incredibly surprised if Saros, is that the name of the game? If that game does not have some stuff reused from Returnal, I would be very surprised, because that is a perfect case of they were going for a smaller scale victory. They got the smaller scale victory, and they were very happy with that. And then we get this pseudo sequel greenlit, and I love that. That's great. It's a fantastic success story that I think we should look at.
Yeah.
Agreed. Mobile games are cool.
Mobile games are cool. Thumbs up on them. Well, folks, another one for the books. We've talked it out on genre. We've talked it out on mobile games. Join us next week, where we will continue to make it worse.
Join us next week when we're going to make it work. Yeah.
We will continue
find a way
to make it worse. Exactly. Yeah, Brody, you knew where I was going with it. Folks, make it worse in your daily life. We will see you in the next one.